made sure that he was happy to be there. He wasn't asking to move somewhere else. And then the next pastor was there 25 years before he retired. And, you know, from sitting on the finance committee in the latter portion of that, budgeting was pretty tight. So I haven't been there for 20 years, but just looking at what's happened to the church and the way the new pastors they have, obviously something changed. But a lot of times that happens with your inner city churches too. You have churches that have been supported because they were our flagship church, and then all of a sudden, the denomination changes, the dynamics of the community change, and the whole thing moves on.
Now, the other thing I wanted to ask is all of that I am hearing, taking in, listening to. We are, as a group here today, we are operating within the realms of UMC, United Methodist Church. Because I sort of looked at neighbor churches right here in Bristol, and mentioned at least one pastor. He was pastor in that church when I came to Bristol during the 1960s. But that's a whole other thing.
Well, and we have a bit of a, I don't know if it's unique, but certainly a different way of appointing pastors than a lot of denominations. Through the appointment process, that the cabinet works with the bishop to see that all of the ordained clergy has a place to pastor. And I don't envy them that task. I mean, I think they've just come back from their annual camp out, and it's a burdensome, everyone I've heard discuss it and seen go and come back has had it's been an ordeal, and it's done prayerfully, and it's done with an awful lot of consideration, which is why, once things are pretty well set, it's very difficult to say, oh, I'm going to change Sam over here and put Mary in, because the whole thing is built as a conference. Whereas if I've got, pick one, Oral Roberts or somebody over here, and he can raise, however many millions of dollars he can raise, then as a church, I can let him have however much of that, is available. It's an entirely different process. Okay. A little off track, but I think it's appropriate to, to talk about some of these things. So we've talked about separation of duties. It's important that, especially with the cash, that there be multiple people involved in handling it together. That the same person not be responsible for putting it in as withdrawing it. We do recommend that we have dual signatures on checks. Pastor should not be a signer. The financial secretary should not be a signer. Your treasurer, and then somebody from the finance committee, presumably, that's available on a regular basis, works close to the church, can get to the church on short notice, lives close to the church, to sign checks. The There should be bank reconciliations on a monthly basis done by someone other than the ones that are writing the checks. And those should be reviewed. That's part of what the annual review would be. And, when it's a reason to have written procedures in place so that, if you have written procedures, then the finance committee knows that when we're going through this report, it's not rote. I don't need to go to sleep. I need to listen to what we're doing. And how does that jive with what I heard last month? To the minutes, do these agree with what we had last month? Which they do. I mean, but that's just, that in and of itself is a review. As someone who has prepared statements like that before, just the fact that I'm going to give them to Reverend Taylor, and I'm going to give them to the finance committee, makes me want to make sure that everything is right. And I won't have to go back next month and fix something. And if I do, I need to explain that fix in great detail. Normally there's a valid reason for it, but it's, things like that happen. And what we've talked about, the review or the audit, I read something in one of these handouts, actually this morning when I was going through it again, with the larger churches, the larger you are, the more in depth they expect that audit to be. And they talk about a $500,000 disbursement breakdown or $1 million disbursement breakdown. I've not been involved with the church that had a $1 million budget. I have been involved with a church that had a $2 million renovation, but that's outside the budget. So I think we've covered everything that we have in here. If there's something in more detail anybody wants to talk about or to ask about, I'd be more than happy to entertain questions or try not to step on Reverend Taylor's toes anymore.
Well, I have another question.
Okay.
How much information, this is an opinion question.
Okay.
How much information should pastors have about persons to give within that congregation?
Well, that's a personal question. I'll give you a personal answer.
You're the expert here today.
Well, it's overrated, by the way, but I think that if a pastor is doing their job, they know who's giving. I don't think they should be given a list of, Art didn't give anything this week and Sam gave $10,000. Now, if Art has a large gift he wants to give, and he wants to make sure that it goes where it's needed or it goes where he wants it to go, Art needs to sit down with the pastor and the treasurer and say, this is what I'd like for us to do, and I'd like to fund it this way. Is this something the church is willing to take on? Is this something the church wants to do? To that extent, I think it's very, very appropriate for the pastor to know. Just, I could tell pretty much, and I've never seen the 1099s or anything else on any of the churches I've been involved with. But if you attend church regularly and you attend the events of the church, whether it be Wednesday night dinners or homecomings, or you know who's involved. It may surprise you that they are or are not giving, and it may be a case of the widow's mite. That widow may be there every day of the week or every Sunday without fail, but she has nothing to give. But she's giving no less than the one that's actually supporting the finances of the church. But if, as I was saying, if you attend, you know who is, quote, supporting the church. And, you know, I can honestly say that I have gone from one end of that spectrum to another. We've, you know, one year I received a substantial bonus at the job I was in and made a multiple $1,000 contribution to missions at the church where I was involved. And I pretty well sat down with the pastor and described what I wanted, what I thought I wanted to be done with that money. I was executive of state for a relative who had left a sizable sum of money. And we saw that that was how that was used. So, you know, I no longer have those jobs that have bonuses. I'm working for less than what I would be getting if I was getting that $400 a week unemployment bonus right now. So consequently, I'm not contributing as much to the church as I once did, or I wish that I could. But, you know, I think you would admit I'm probably there half the time they open the doors anyway. But, you know, so, you know, it's just, you know, my personal opinion is no, I don't think the pastor should be aware of who gives what. If they're worth their salt, they've got a pretty good idea anyway. And most of the pastors I've known, I don't think really want to know, because I think that, you know, if we, it's human nature. If we know, you know, you say what side our bread's buttered on, we have a tendency to lean a little bit in that direction. And that's not what the church is really about. Any more tough questions? Anybody
During
else?
this, COVID time, we find, I don't know if I should tell them, but we find ourselves doing shortcuts, maybe not as much as we would do, you know, during regular time. Maybe not 2 people are counting, maybe not 2 people are going to the bank. Are there shortcuts?
Well, I think that I'm not gonna tell you, yeah, go ahead, because that's against my grain,
Okay.
but I understand what you're saying. And we still need to get the money taken care of and in the bank, you know. I think we need to bend over backwards to make sure we're doing things right and realize that we are taking shortcuts and we're putting ourselves at risk by doing that. You know, what happens when I get my 1099 next year and I tell you that you didn't put that $10,000 gift I gave on February 3rd on my 1099? Just that type of question. You know, I'm not saying it will come up, but that's the risk that we put ourselves at.
I don't know if this falls within the realm of all we're talking about. But the church that I attend here in Bristol, and I don't know who came up with the idea, is who built that little church?
Somebody bought it.
Oh, okay.
Replica of the church.
Uh-huh.
It's a little replica of a church with a little slit there. And if you missed or didn't have something to put in the morning collection, or you came up or found it in your pocket or whatever, you're going out, you can still donate.
Okay. You're saying that somebody, one of the churches here in Bristol, got a replica of a church, a sculpture, I guess, a box
Right.
that you could donate to and drop your offerings in that. I know we started back with in-person services this month, and one of our members has made offering boxes that have been mounted on the walls at the exits to the sanctuary. We don't even take up an offering per se during the service. We, as they come in and we greet them and take their attendance, we point them to that box if they have an offering. And then during the service or at the end of the service, they're reminded that there is a box at each exit that they can use for that.
And that's another nice thing that within UMC churches, there's always a little envelope.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In some places they say envelope, but I grew up saying envelope. And it had the church emblem and everything. And if you missed anything, we always have those in the pews. So there's always a way to get your money where it's supposed to go.
I haven't been reading all these questions that have come through. I think I just saw one that was,
I've been writing the questions in the room on the chat, but I haven't seen any other questions.
I just saw one that said, what if you belong to a church that only may have $25 worth of cash offerings a week? Do you still need 2 people? The risk of, it's a risk reward question. The more money that is anticipated in cash, the higher the risk of not having 2 people. You know, I would say as long as the finance committee is aware of it and approves it, you know, it's not in the discipline, you know, but once again, that's why we have committees, and that's why the finance committee is giving direction to the treasurer and the financial assistant. You know, if that's the situation, because of the COVID and, you know, quarantines and whatnot, you can't do it, then, you know, that just needs to be passed up the chain. This is the situation. What do you want us to do? Yeah.
Moises is going to talk about the district.
Okay, can you do it from there? Okay, super.
Moises, let me know if you want me to share my
Yeah,
screen.
just go ahead and share that one, so they can see it.
I've got.
Can you mute that one? My computer, please.
Can you mute that?
Oh, you don't look for that.
Hi. My name is Moises Martinez, and I'm currently helping with the books at the district office. I think that. Okay. I would like to just show you really quick the Clinch district asking form. You can see it right there on the screen. This is a form that we have put together for you guys to just fill up before you send your askings, or attach this form with your check. This just help us keep a better control to then put at the end of the year reports. I just want to remind you to please send it with your check. I have also put together this form on a spreadsheet in case you guys want to go ahead and do it on your computer. You are able to just type in the number according to the week and then put the designated income in the bottom. It will subtract it and give you the automatic amount. Now, if you're doing it by hand, all you have to do is take the total money you receive, take the designated off of that, and then multiply it times 0.0225. And that will give you the amount that you should be sending to the district office. I believe we used to do an apportionment, and now we do just the percentage, which is at 2.25%, which has helped with COVID.
And the
Yeah.
conference, can you say just a little about the conference as well? It's 10%.
Right, the conference is different. The conference is at 10%. That's the difference, and they have their own sheets.
Mhm.
It also goes out to you guys on the bulletin every month if you need it.
On Holston.org.
Yes, Holston. And just a reminder, the designated income is anything that has come to you guys for a specific purpose. If it's something to create a memorial, something to help specifically the garden, you don't have to give that to the district. It's only what has been given for the church in general budget. Thank you so much.
Let me ask you this,
Yes.
the designated income for the district and the conference should be the same? No?
Yes,
Yes, that part is the
yes, the
same.
reporting should be the same.
Mhm.
That's right.
Your designated income doesn't change according to the month. It's the same. Mhm.
Does anybody-
Let's see, people give to mortgage funds, building funds, is that's
It is.
Yes.
Sunday school?
Yes.
Yes, if they wrote a check that says this is for Sunday school, it's just for Sunday school. You don't have to,
Missions.
exactly. There's some examples at the bottom. For example, there's tuition-based income tax donations. That will be Sunday school, a pass-through donation. They're just using us as the intermediary to then give to the Sunday school. Endowment donations, capital gains, that's an important one. But capital gains, if you have an account with a foundation, you do not have to report those to us. You do not have to say, here's how much of the capital gains we have done. Mhm.
You do.
Yeah.
You're on.
Mhm. I'm not-
All right. There's one thing that, just because we're talking about district donations, it struck me when I was, well, actually, when I came to the Johnson City, Tennessee area and was working, we were trying to actually figure out how to reduce the budget, but in the Johnson City area, a significant portion of the district's budget is for ministries. And we found that as a church, we were supporting a ministry, and we were supporting the same ministry again through the district. So we made our people aware we're supporting this particular ministry through the district, and basically use that as a means of reducing the budget. We weren't cutting that program out. It was just as a way of a connection, a way of being involved, which made the reduction, a lot of missions are favorites of certain members of the church. And you don't want to touch those for fear of, alienating certain members of the church. We were able to do that, but, we're still very much aware of the ministries that our district supports. And they, I might add, support our youth ministry. Please.
The question, designated money, when does designated money cease being designated money?
When does designated money cease being designated money? In my opinion, it doesn't. But I have seen instances where we have $14,000 in a fund that's been sitting there for 20 years to upgrade this particular portion of the church, which has never been upgraded because it would cost $25,000 or $50,000 to do what we want to do. In that particular case, we had a member of a church who is a contractor. And he said, I tell you what I'll do for what you have in that fund. I'll upgrade that area. It will be usable for what we want to use it for, but it may not have all the amenities we initially anticipated. We released those funds for that purpose. To me, those funds were used as they were designated to be used, although the original vision may not have been completely met. That would have been the bathrooms downstairs in the gym. I've also seen instances where, well, scholarship fund, there's another one. There's a scholarship fund that 20 years, never changed. Didn't go up, didn't go down. And we had needs that weren't quite a scholarship, but it was still educational in nature to someone who, might have benefited from a scholarship. So, in those instances, I felt that, we did things along the lines of what was intended. I've also,
Who gets to decide that?
once again, let's go back to the question of, who's responsible? The treasurer, the financial secretary are working at the direction of the finance committee, right? And the finance committee is doing its work at the direction of what? The church council. In both those instances, the pastor, well, I don't know, one of the instances, but I don't know how the construction work got to us, but the finance committee was brought the situation, and every month we see the balance on these funds, and it's just kind of a rote go through. And I think at one point we had about 30 funds. There was considerable work to consolidate or to use some of those funds, because I don't think anybody gives funds to have them sit. But anyway, it came to the finance committee. We took a vote on it. I mean, we knocked it around for several months, decided what we thought was the best way to go forward, made that presentation to our governing body, if you will, the church council, let them make a decision, came back down to the finance committee, which we then turn around and gave that direction to the treasurer. And so, once again, you got the hierarchy, and as a donor, I don't know, as long as that's done right, I don't think I'll have a great deal of trouble with that. But trust me, I would be very much aware going forward that might be a potential outcome, rather than giving seed money for something, hoping that the church will get behind it and raise the rest of it. I might go for either a larger donation or a smaller vision of what I want to give to. But
What about memorials and the expenditure of memorials? They can sit there for a long
they can.
time.
To me, that's designated giving. Typically, when it is designated, it's given for a specific purpose. I think the church is doing a disservice by sitting on it. But that's, once again, that's my personal opinion.
Any other questions on the one?
That seems to be all the questions we have. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and if we need to do this again, I'm sure Jane can find somebody else to do it. You know, she has this reason.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready to sign off?
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.